So for this next cosplay, I want to make a pair of gloves. And I have Yaya Han's glove and boot cover pattern. It's really instrumental for if you need to make, boot covers like the ankle ones or the ones that go up to your knees or your thighs, and then gloves of like 3 or 4 different lengths. They apparently have misplaced that pattern. I'm also on a time crunch, and I don't know where that pattern is, where it could have been. So what I'm going to do is just make a new one. So let's learn how to make some gloves. First of all, you need a paper bag. I get mine from Hy-Vee, all that good stuff. They do not care if I walk out with paper bags. Okay, cool. Then you're going to take said paper bag, chop it up long style, like blue Cantrell, hit 'em up style, whatever it is. I like to go ahead and have the longest piece that I can, so that way I've got some wiggle room in case I mess up. Okay, cool. Now here's where it's going to get a little creative, where you could also phone a friend if you can, or, I'm going to record this and all of this good stuff, but if you have a friend to help you, cool. If not, you can do this by yourself. It's just going to be a little wonky. Like I said, wonky. So, hi. Here I am. My arm is flat on the paper, and I have my whole arm on the paper because I want these gloves to go kind of shoulder length or whatever. I also like to use a precise Sharpie for this. I'm marking where I want the gloves to end, begin, how long they want to be, and then the rest is literally tracing. You also want to make sure that your hand is spread wide as you can for all your fingers and your thumb, because you need to be able to get in between each of them and have an adequate amount of space. So now we have our wonderful tree limb. And again, the reason why I like the precise Sharpie is that this way I can go ahead and clean up some of these lines. Even them out as much as I can. All that good stuff. Make my palm a little bit wider. The drawing does not have to be 100% like professional or anything like that. Just as long as you've got, and also like you can see where my arm was at an angle, but as long as you've got it pretty straightened up, you're okay. All right, so after you clean up your shape, and you can either do this, you can draw this, or you can do it as you cut it out. You want to make sure that you leave a little bit of room for seam allowance. Now, I want these gloves to have a tight fit because they're going to be dyed a different color. It's supposed to mimic skin, unlike my Sailor Moon gloves that I made, which, I don't care about the fit of them in any way, shape, or form. But these are going to be dyed pink. And so, like, arm socks are very tight fitting. I want these to fit tight, but I also have spandex, which has a 4-way stretch. So they will fit snugly and it'll still be okay. But if your gloves do not have 4-way stretch, if your fabric is not does not have a lot of give to it, then give yourself a lot of seam allowance. Either draw your seam allowance on here before you cut it out, or you can just cut around wherever it is that you've drawn if you didn't add in the seam allowance. So seam allowance is very important when you're making gloves, as I have made so many gloves that did not have an adequate amount of seam allowance, and they were like the Chinese finger traps when your fingers get stuck trying to put them into that mug. So but anyways, I just wanted to cover that because that's important. So now that we have our handy dandy pattern piece cut out, it's time to line up on the fabric. Make sure that you've got it aligned just right, all of that good stuff. You need to make sure, this next part is pretty important. So you want to make sure that you are going to put the right side of the fabric See how we've got a not shiny side, here's a shiny side. You want to make sure that you put the right side of the fabric together. So I am going to actually fold this way. Okay. Fold it like that. And then I'm going to put my pattern piece on top. And then I'm actually going to trace around the pattern. Okay. Now, as you can see, I ain't shit when it comes to finding various items to weigh my patterns down, as you have seen in a variety of my sewing related items. Okay, cool. So now that we have the pattern piece weighed down effectively, it is time to trace it. I like to do my tracing with a disappearing pen. So the purple side here, which is what I like to use the most, has air soluble ink, meaning that shit will disappear, like evaporate. And then there's the water soluble ink, which means that'll disappear after you wipe it off with a damp rag, you wash the garment, whatever it is. Actually, I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to use the water. No, wait. I'm going to do the disappearing part because we're going to dye these anyways. So, you know, whatever. Now, this next part is important. So now that we have the pattern traced, this is the important part. You are not going to cut this out. No, you will not cut this out. I strongly suggest for you to pin it. Put a pin on each finger to hold both sides of the fabric together. That's what you'll do. A pin on each finger, maybe 1 or 2 pins here at the palm, and then 1 to 3 pins here in the arm to keep that all together. The reason being is that if you do cut this out as it is going to take you so long to sew in between each and every single finger. One of my friends from NakaCon saved my life with this tip because it was taking me, and again, this is why I am confident in the gloves that I make now, but they gave me a wonderful tip and mentioned it that go ahead, yes, trace your pattern, but do not cut the shit out until you're done. It makes it so much easier to sew. You'll be able to really get into these little nooks and crannies in between all of the fingers, and you'll have a better and more seamless look, and it'll be a more quality experience all around. Trust me on this. I'm going to show you how easy this is. Now fire up your sewing machine, find a decent zigzag stitch, or you could use that handy dandy elastic stitch. Apparently that's what that is. I don't know. Anyways, sew slowly, because again, you want to be mindful of the fact, especially around the fingers and between the little nooks and crannies and shit, but sew slowly and take your time as you go. You're trying to figure out how to sew around this curve, just lift your foot up a little bit while the needle is still in the cloth. Adjust your fabric as you need, and then put the foot back down. Easy peasy. And now you need to go in the complete opposite direction. Same thing. Lift your foot up again while the needle is still in the fabric. And then adjust your positioning. And then put the foot back down. Alright, so now that you've got your stitching done, and what I did actually, because I wanted to make sure it was cool, and I had to do a little bit of maintenance on my machine because it started to skip stitches. So I actually sewed around the perimeter twice, which makes it less likely for you to have holes in your gloves and whatnot. So now that all of the stitching is done, now you can go ahead and cut everything out. Also, as a suggestion, if you do the double stitching like I did, then cut the fabric out as close to the stitching as you possibly can too. Alright, So now it's just time to turn everything inside out, or right side out, whatever. Woo woo. I also added a quick hem off camera. Y'all didn't need to see me do that. It was just a simple zigzag stitch folding down the edge, so that way it's all finished on the outside. And now I will show you the finished product. Ta-da! Aha! This is it. I made it opera length because I could, and also if I am going to, make these as like arm socks, dyeing them pink or whatever, depending upon whatever outerwear I've got going on, if I've got on long sleeves or short sleeves, this way I have long enough sleeves to where it's not a major concern. I could roll it down to my forearm if I don't need it that long or whatever. But yeah, making the pattern from your own arm means that it's custom to your arm shape and all of that good stuff. If I wanted to add some vinyl decals as nails after I am done dyeing them, I could, but they're literally the shape of my hand, like fitted and all of that good shit. And that's the thing that I struggle with when I use commercial patterns for gloves, is that I have a shorter pinky than most people. I don't know why. It's just the way that my pinky is designed. And every other glove pattern out there, I always have to shorten the fingers for mine. So oftentimes I like to make my own glove pattern. But yeah, there you go. The double stitching was super effective. Critical hit, all of that good stuff. I would probably in the future add some notches around the fingernails so that way it curves. It looks a little bit more natural rather than as boxy as this does, or as pointed right there. But okay, all done. Enjoy. Hope you learned. Thanks for watching. Bye.